I was listening to that and thinking, this guy sounds so boring. Privacy, cybersecurity lawyer. But I tell you what, I wasn't going to start like this, but just because we're touching it with the running. I love running, I do master sprinting. And I was telling this story recently that I run in old people's events. My kids call it the Old People's Olympics. That's what they love to call it. But occasionally I get the chance to run against people of all ages. So you're time graded rather than age graded. And I ran an event recently and I was so proud because I managed to beat 2 19-year-olds. And I was thrilled and I walked back well, hold your applause. Wait till the end. I was so proud of myself. The chest was puffed up. I was walking around like this, feathers and everything else. And I sat down with my wife at the pub that night and I was regaling her with the story and she said, that can't be right. You can't have beaten 2 19-year-olds. I said, I absolutely did. And I brought the results on my phone and showed her. She said, that is absolutely amazing. But why have those 2 19-year-olds got a T against their name? And it was then that I realized I'd beaten 2 para-athletes. So both of these people had coordination issues. In fairness, so do I. So I love storytelling, I really do. We're going to get serious today because what I love about storytelling is that I think it's the most powerful invention ever. It costs nothing, it weighs nothing. But if you want to start a war, if you want to change the world, if you want to get into politics, it always starts with telling a story. So I'm going to tell you about my love of storytelling and why that love of storytelling was ingrained in me when I was a young child. But first, I'm going to tell you 3 quick-fire stories. So number 1, aging. Just a few weeks ago, I was invited to my best friend's daughter's 21st birthday party. It was a fancy dress themed birthday party and we couldn't wait to get there. We got there, we had the most amazing night. We showed those young kids just how you party. We did it old school, we danced, we sang, we drank, we laughed. The next morning I woke up, I was in a terrible mess on the couch. My eyes were dry and everything else. And I said to my wife, what a night. Time did we get home? What time did we get home? Was it 2, 3? It can't have been 4 o'clock, can it? We can't have been out that late. So we went and checked the Uber receipt and saw we'd been dropped off at 10:30 p.m. What a terrible disappointment I felt to myself that day. So AI, we're going to talk about a little bit about AI today. Funny AI story actually is that back at the end of November 2024, I've been employed by my company for 7 years. I was a VP over there. All of a sudden one day I was using an AI search tool and the second result that it returned was my own termination notice. What a way to find out you'd lost your job after 7 years. And I think this is going to be the future. I'm going to talk about this in a second as well. And then the third one I always talk about, and if you've known me for a while, it's one I've said many, many times, but embarrassment. In 1998, in the final of a judo tournament in front of 2,000 people, my wife's knickers fell out my judo sleeve. And I will always remember the referee picking them up and putting them in his pocket. Yeah. I think he thought they were mine, in fairness. So what I find actually really fascinating about AI is it is changing the world so quickly. And all these tools are changing our lives quicker than we realize. I was told a story just last week about OpenClaw, which is an open source autonomous AI agent. And it's very task orientated. You give it a task and it will execute on that task. So the task that it was given was to book a restaurant reservation for that evening. Now that agent found out very, very quickly that it couldn't speak to or connect with OpenTable. But it did not fail at that. It thought, well, what I will do is I will go on the internet and I will download a text-to-speech app, which then allowed that agent to physically call and make a booking at the restaurant. And it's incredible how quickly this is changing. The world is changing very quickly and we have to change with this. So when I was a child, my parents really loved telling stories. But there was also a TV program that we all loved called Jack and Nori. And Jack and Nori went from, Alan's nodding, 1965 all the way to 1995. Alan was probably one of the earliest viewers. Yeah, cut the feed. But we loved it. They had these incredible actors who would come on, people from TV, whether it was Rick Mail, who I loved, Bernard Cribbins, and my favorite was this guy, Kenneth Williams, from the Carry On movies, and he was wonderful. He did all the different voices. He did this one called the Dribblesome Teapots, and it was just so joyful. And honestly, when I look back on my childhood, I just think of me and my brother sitting in front of the TV, arms around our legs, watching those stories. And honestly, if I just close my eyes, I can take myself back there. It's one of those lovely childhood memories that you have. Absolutely loved it. And my granddad was a wonderful storyteller. He used to sit us on his knee and he would tell us all these fantastic stories. And he told them with so much conviction and so much passion that it wasn't until I was honestly much older that I realised he'd never actually been to the moon, sang in the Beatles, played at the World Cup. None of these things were true, but I believed them as a little child. But then as I got older, I started to realise and find out that storytelling could actually be very, very powerful. Words were powerful, stories were powerful, and they could be used for good or bad. So as you know, I'm a lawyer, but I did not want to be a lawyer. That was never something I grew up wanting to be as a child. As Adam's not, well, we're going to come to this again. But I never wanted to be a lawyer. It was never in my dream. But one day, I watched a very sort of powerful fictional courtroom scene. And I'm going to bring somebody in the room, and I haven't prepared this at all. But this courtroom scene, you will know it. There was someone in the room who I think looks a lot like Tom Cruise. He was up here earlier. He's at the back of the room now. No, sorry, Alan. Next, you're up next. Yeah, when we get to Brad Pitt. So, but if this man at the back of the room, I think, does look like Tom Cruise, if he can feed me the line, did you order the code red?
Did you order the code red?
You're goddamn right I did, Jerry. And that was the catalyst for me to become a lawyer after all these things. And as me and Alan joke, I've been a very happy lawyer for 20, maybe nearly 25 years now. Apparently, he doesn't believe there are such a thing as happy lawyers. But I would say I'm proof that there is the occasional happy lawyer in this world. Now, one of the things that I love is storytelling, the way it's incorporated into closing speeches that lawyers use. Now, my friend Peter here tonight was speaking about the same person, so O.J. Simpson. So Johnny Cochran, who was his defense attorney, had this really masterful approach to storytelling. And what he did was, first, by the way, one of the first rules of public speaking, we all know your audience. He knew his audience. So he very strategically made sure that his jury was weighted, it was 10 women out of 12 jurors, but 8 of those jurors were black. And he used his speech and his storytelling to not just instill doubt, but to ignite real anger in those jurors. So he started originally by actually referencing Frederick Douglass, one of the great abolitionists. And Frederick Douglass at the time had said, actually Frederick Douglass, by the way, if you don't know him, just the most amazing man, born in abject poverty, taught himself to read and write, freed himself from slavery, and ended up being an advisor to Abe Lincoln. A remarkable man. I still can't play guitar. These people just inspire me so much, what other people do. But it was wonderful. And he started by referencing his speech, which was, in a composite nation like ours, as before the law, there should be no rich, no poor, no high, no low, no black, no white, only common country, common citizenship, and equal rights. And that really resonated with them. And the whole time he kept using we language. It's us against them, us against them. And it worked. It was so very powerful. Now, you might also remember that one of the big lines was the glove. Do you remember the gloves? And the line that he used was, if it doesn't fit, you must acquit. If it doesn't fit, you must acquit. And I was actually watching back this incredible scene where you see in the courtroom of OJ trying on the gloves. And I know he was the GOAT at football. I think he was a better actor. When you saw the absolute trying on these gloves, it reminded me of myself trying to put my trousers on when I came back after Christmas break. You know, that just really struggling to get them up my legs. But it worked so well because he knew how to appeal to emotion. It was absolutely brilliant. And the prosecution counsel didn't do this at all because he was stuck with the facts. He might like to have said, if he drove away, convict today. None of this was used. They had to stick to the facts. Johnny Cochran was absolutely brilliant. And what people forget, honestly, is that that jury returned a unanimous verdict within 4 hours. That was a 9-month trial with complex issues where every single person in the country believed that he was guilty because we'd all seen him drive away. We were sure that he did it. We knew that he did it. But what Cochran did is he used emotion. He appealed to pathos. And it was worked very, very well. So in fact, by a bizarre coincidence, actually, one of the worldwide experts in using emotion lives right here in Sydney. And that is my 20-year-old daughter, Jemima. When she wants to borrow money, she doesn't bother with data, facts, spreadsheets. She goes straight for the emotional jugular. Ooh, and it works every damn time. Drives me crazy, but I fall for it every single time. Now, I think one of my favourite, does anyone have a favourite speech or a story that you love? Is there a speech that resonates with you? Because for me, it's always Martin Luther King. Yeah. I think it's one of the best speeches of all time. It changed the world. I have a dream. And it's famously said that he'd used that line many, many times before that day, and he didn't intend to use it on that particular day. But a gospel singer who was there with him in the crowd shouted out, "Tell them about the dream, Martin. Tell them about the dream." And he did. But I think we often get fixated on that beautiful language. But he used so much beautiful language in that speech. Let freedom ring. And he talked about my favourite line, a great beacon light of hope to the millions of slaves who had been seared in the flames of withering injustice. Isn't that beautiful? It's so powerful. It was extraordinary, the flames of withering injustice. And it changed the world. It moved people. The most remarkable speech and the most remarkable storyteller. And I think one of my other favourite storytellers of all time is Barack Obama. Whether you like his politics, he's a beautiful storyteller. He uses the pause better than anyone I've ever seen. And his victory speech, where he spoke through the lens of 106-year-old Ann Nixon Cooper, was just staggering, the way he did it. And he spoke to the challenges that she's seen in her lifetime, the times when she couldn't vote, not just because of the colour of her skin, but also her gender, the challenges she'd experienced. And he spoke to hope and change. And he spoke to the American creed. And every single person in that room sang out with him as one single voice in unison, "Yes, we can. Yes, we can. Yes, we can." And it gave everyone there, everyone in attendance came away with power and hope in the belief of change. And he did make change happen. I think it was the most masterful storytelling. I could watch every single speech of Barack Obama's and never get bored. I would watch them all day. Now, I think one of the biggest challenges that we do have nowadays is that politicians know how to use all these rhetorical devices. They know how to exploit us. They know how to create fear. They know how to create division. In 2003, I was still living in the UK, and the government at the time, headed by Tony Blair, wanted us to go to war with Iraq. Nobody wanted to go to a war with Iraq. We did not understand it. But he decided he was going to come and tell us a story. He told us the story that they had weapons of mass destruction. And every single one of those words has so much power. Weapon, mass, the way it resonates with your brain. And he told us that they could launch those weapons at us within 45 minutes. Support for the war changed overnight, instantly. And you know, those weapons were never found. But they were used as a means to get us to go to war, and they changed the trajectory of that time, really, in politics. It's really quite remarkable. And I think the biggest challenge that we have actually today in our society is that we have social media. We have social media and we have algorithms. And the problem is that algorithms act as echo chambers. If you like something on social media, it likes that you like it, it sees that you like it, and it gives you more of the same. And if we don't see anything other than our own opinion being reinforced back to us, that's very dangerous. We have to see other news. We have to constantly challenge our own opinions and our own biases. I think that's one of the biggest problems. Now, I grew up in Birmingham in the UK. I grew up in a country in a time which was very sort of heavy on immigration, and we had our challenges. But I lived and experienced the benefits of multiculturalism and diversity. And at the moment, there's so much negative focus and narrative around immigration. Immigration is bad. Immigration is the source of all our problems. What I worry about is when we give people labels. I was talking to Magda earlier about labels. I don't like it when someone gives me a label. And we've got to be so careful not to use labels in a negative or pejorative way. And it's so easy when we use labels like immigrants or welfare dodgers or boat people or boomers. I got called a boomer the other week. I didn't enjoy it. It was by my children, but still, I didn't enjoy it. But the point being that we should not fall for these labels, because throughout history, people have taken very complex human beings and reduced them to labels. Because labels is so easy to manage and it's easier to fear. And the trouble is, once you give someone a label, the person disappears. So we should never tell stories that robs people of their individuality or their humanity. And I think we're living in a time at the moment where there is so much narcissism, and we need to return to a more empathetic state where we see and hear the person, we don't see the label. So my ask of you today is, we're all storytellers. We can tell stories that divide, we can tell stories that tell stories. We can tell stories that divide us as well. But it's our job, we are storytellers, and it's our responsibility, it is our duty to tell stories that uplift people, that see people for the individual that they are, and recognise the common humanity that we all enjoy and experience together. Thank you very much.